Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here. Welcome to another episode of the Jug Life Podcast, special bonus edition as we review the World Weightlifting Championships. I'm joined as always by miraculous Max Montana. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How you guys doing?
Good, good. Today's episode is brought to you by Trenbolone and Toblerone. It's a lifestyle. I think particularly fitting for this holiday season as well.
It's a festive kind of lifestyle, I think.
Nothing that quite goes together like delicious Swiss chocolates in funny shapes and
Night sweats and an inability to communicate with human beings anymore.
so let's just go ahead and jump right into a big review of World Championships. They were right around the corner here in Anaheim, California, and obviously you were both a coach and a spectator.
Yep.
So let's lead things off with Team USA and some of the highlights of what I guess has to be considered the best performance maybe in World Championship history for Team USA. Would that be correct?
Probably outside of something when like the press still existed.
Uh huh.
I mean, I can't imagine there's anything as good as we've done here back. I mean, you'd have to look really far back to a time that really doesn't even resemble weightlifting today. But yeah, it's got to be up there, probably the best.
So let's just kind of work our way, I guess, through the days and some of the highlights along the way.
Yeah.
Leading off with Team Juggernaut's own 48 kilo class national champion and now 7th place in the world, Alyssa Ritchie. So I'll let you take it away there, Coach, and kind of recap her performance.
Obviously, probably my favorite competitor.
Let's hope so.
But so before explaining some of what happened, it's important for everyone listening to know that the USOC offered an extra sum of money, an extra bonus stipend that's distributed monthly. It comes out to about $12,000 a year, so about $1,000 a month, for any lifters that placed in the top 8. So there was a significant attraction for all the lifters to try and attempt to get that top 8 placing. So if you're kind of confused as to why everyone's talking about getting into the top 8, that's what they're really referring to. I believe I was told by Phil that USOC only expected 3 people to get top 8. So I know we exceeded that as a team, which is really cool. But that was kind of our first goal, and Alyssa definitely went after that, and that was really awesome to see. Made 7th place, made the top 8. There was some jockeying around, a couple of strategic attempts I think we played that worked out really well for us. And she took the right numbers at the right time and made the list she needed and got into 7th place. So overall, I'm happy with the performance. I think all of us on Team Juggernaut are really happy with it. The rest.
I don't know what that beep was. Just keep going.
Oh. The rest of the class was pretty cool. There was like one standout, a couple standouts at the top of it that were pretty far away. But honestly, I think what was cool, and this is probably something that rings true for a lot of the lifters and a lot of the competition, is that watching Alyssa, she placed what she placed, but if you look at her aggregate best lifts in training, obviously at a heavier body weight, but still there's some hope there because you can see, hey, if she'd have done 81 and 103, that would have been a bronze medal. So I think it's cool to see that there's hope that, like, hey, we could actually be in the medal count here, in the medal hunt. Obviously some other lifters did, but that was cool. I think that's kind of neat to see that finally we're there, where it's not like, oh, another 15 kilos would have bumped you up 2 spots to 17th or something.
Yeah, and of course there's going to be a lot of talk and speculation about, and everyone's saying, well, U.S. did good, but it's only because all these people weren't there, and we'll get into the reality of what that looks like in a bit. But as a quick preview for the listeners there, I would say that the bands didn't make that big of a difference as a whole. as far as Team USA's success. So moving on from Alyssa, the next I think real standout job was
Yeah.
congratulations to Caitlin Hogan, an American record total.
Yeah.
A bit of a rough session in the snatch but came back with some great clean and jerks. So
Yeah.
congratulations to Caitlin, to Coach John Waxman for her just consistent, steady improvement over the last couple of years. Uh,
Yep. Absolutely.
Another big highlight moving through the days would be for the 69 kilo class, and the boy wonder, the prodigy, C.J. Cummings, with for as many records as he set in the clean and jerk to now, I think he already had it, but to break the snatch American record, unfortunately, couldn't complete a total there with the switch to the squat jerk, and of course there's going to be plenty of a speculation and armchair coaching,
Yeah.
armchair quarterbacking about the timing of the switch or the decision in general to switch from the split jerk, where he has the world youth record and the American senior record, to switching to the squat jerk just about, 8 weeks, 2 months before the biggest meet ever. What are your what's your impression of that decision?
So I mean, I think everybody knows. Everybody already knows my opinion on squat jerks.
You love them?
Yeah. And so two things to say. One, I asked Piros in the back room. There was a 48 lifter doing squat jerks, and she almost bombed out. And I asked him, I said, what is your best ever power jerk, your best ever power jerk? He said 220 kilos.
And just for the listeners to clarify, when you're talking about power and squat jerk, you're essentially talking about the same thing. Just it becomes a squat jerk if the athlete has to ride it down into the hole.
Yeah. So he said 220, and then I asked, what was your best split jerk? And he said 225. So it's not, in his case, it wasn't a matter of him doing one or the other because he was so bad at one or the other. He was just much more comfortable doing, a power jerk, and so he went with that. He just said it felt better. It was more comfortable. He was more successful.
And did he do that for the likes? Because I feel like that gets more likes on Instagram. So
without a doubt,
he had a lot of forward thinking in designing the power jerk back in the 90s.
So that being said, I think it's like, in the long run with CJ, like switching his technique, it may work out and he may be more legendary than Dimas, It may be his signature lift, and he may never miss another jerk again. It's impossible to say. It's also, you don't want to be the kind of person who's super negative about it and say, bad, like you guys are idiots, because that's not really the case. I mean, I think the decision to switch is not as relevant as maybe, the time.
Yeah.
As from a coach and from a long term, from anyone's perspective, if you recruit Marshawn Lynch to be a running back on your team, and he gets there and he's like, actually, I play quarterback, and you're like, well, that's not what it's not really the exact same thing we thought you were going to be, or whatever, something weird where it's like, well, it's just a different thing than got you there. I would just think that from every perspective, you'd probably want to stick with the thing that was working up until that point. I will say that in hindsight, looking at it, I don't know if the actual technique he used in the jerk was the issue. Because, and I think you and I were watching this, and this has been said before of CJ, was he doesn't really actually lock out his body at the end of the jerk.
And that was the case in the split jerk as well.
Yeah, it's both lifts. I think that in the case of him, so the rules state you have to be standing at with your body completely erect, right? Your legs locked out, your hips locked out, your body upright. There's obviously some that's just open for interpretation, I think, on some level, depending on someone's posture, But for the most part, he has gotten away for a long time and know for sure in USA weightlifting without really locking out to the extent that there's zero doubt. And that's probably the problem, is that maybe he would have gotten away with those 2 white lights in the worlds, had he really stuck the lift and it wasn't a big deal. But I think it was almost like, he was kind of locked out, but not really, didn't quite stand up. And then he may not be used to having to stand there and sort of fix that or even address it. Or maybe he didn't even realize.
Yeah.
And then the weight just sitting on your hands that long, and you lose balance a little, and then it goes. I think the second attempt that he kind of made and stood up with, like, he could have probably got 2 whites any other day of the week, maybe even 3. It's just impossible to say, right?
Yeah, and as I've heard you say before, that there's no better coach than red lights.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
and in 2020 at the 2020 Olympics, if CJ clean and squat jerks 210 at 77, no one's gonna remember, no one's gonna remember a bum out at 2017 Worlds. They're just gonna be like, oh, good thing that he got all that practice doing squat jerks, and that's really the hope, because obviously we're fans of and CJ, and wish him that this mixed bag of a performance, because it's hard to say a bad performance with an American record snatch, but that this just spurs him on, makes him tougher, and he becomes an even better and better lifter.
The near myth.
Now the next thing I want to talk about is obviously another great young lifter for the U.S., Maddie Rogers. Came away with bronze medal in the total. I think bronze medal across the board, snatch, clean and jerk, and the total. So congratulations to Maddie there. I'm sure that she's kind of frustrated with her own performance, because great athletes tend to be their harshest critics. It was certainly a surprising thing to me, I think, to almost everyone watching, and very likely to Maddie and her coach Danny Camargo, to see her not stand up that clean, because from everything I know about her, she would seem to have plenty of leg strength to do that. But I really don't have even a good speculation to make as to why that didn't happen.
I think it's one of those tough things. It's like, obviously, it's important that when you're discussing something like this, you're not, with any of these lifters and their coaches especially, there's no criticism of what's being done. It's more of an analysis of like what's going on, right? I think I'm sure Danny, we've met Danny's a great guy, and Maddie's a great girl, like a fantastic coach and athlete. I'm sure they have a very clear understanding of what to do next, and they have a good game plan, and they probably know what happened. It was definitely odd. I really didn't expect. It was an unexpected outcome, I think. I thought she was forward in the first clean, and we were wondering maybe she like tweaked something or didn't feel right on the second 2, but it just seemed like those numbers would have been like really well within her abilities. I do know that she's like in school, right? So she might have been.
Yeah, she had to fly back early for the meet for finals. So
who knows how much her training has suffered because of that, and the travel and nerves and anxiety.
Yeah, and just the stress of life. But I think looking back at Maddie's career up to this point, I think you can see this real galvanizing moment of the 2016 Olympic trials, and her doing, seemingly what needed to be done to put her on the team, and obviously having the disappointment of not being on the Olympic team. And to go forward from that, I believe she went 6 for 6 at 6 meets in a row.
Yeah.
So she did that, and then she had missed one lift, I believe, since then in competition. I think one opening snatch at like a local meet. So, I in the same vein as CJ, that hopefully this is a moment that just spurs him on to greater and greater success. I think in 2020 and beyond, as we look back at Miss Martha Ann Rogers' career, we will say, I think, well, alongside this 2016 trials where there was disappointment and she became better out of it.
Yeah.
Her own frustrations with her performance in the clean and jerk there is almost certainly just going to spur her on to better things, because I think that she's that sort of tough competitor.
Absolutely. I
So
think we talked about this before on a different podcast, and we talk about this concept a lot. The concept of the near miss, right?
yeah,
The idea that you get so close to success, but you fall short, and in falling short, you realize how close you actually are, and that drives you to succeed beyond what it would have been. You achieve results greater than what you would have if you were successful the first time. And I think this probably applies in the case of CJ, in the case of Maddie, where they got a taste of this. Of Maddie could be a golden, world champion.
yeah,
CJ could be a world champion. Um, you get a feeling for like, wow, you can really achieve these things if you're able to push beyond any limits that you have now, or fix things or whatever it is.
yeah. So we wish her the best of luck.
Yeah.
Best of luck going forward. Um, Also around that same day, I believe, or maybe the next day, was I know that same day was the incredible, and I think certainly the men's highlight performance of the
Oh
weekend
yeah.
for Team USA, Harrison Morris, who a bit I think has lived in CJ's shadow,
Yeah.
and not to be constantly comparing the two of them, and I'm sure they get sick of that, and they lift in their own weight classes and lift their own weights. But man, way to come to the forefront,
Yeah.
as the leader of USA weightlifting going forward for this next quad. If you talk to him, couldn't be a nicer, more polite, respectful young man, and just a hell of a weightlifter. Oh my God,
Holy
his
cow.
his progress in the snatch in the last 6 months, to go from doing in the 140s at I think maybe 146 or 148 at American Open last year about the same time, to now taking a great shot at 158 after making 155 is phenomenal progress. And then he was having these cramping problems in his quads, so he only did 193 for a new youth world record and an American senior record. And if he hadn't been having that quad cramping issue, which I'm sure they'll get sorted out,
Yeah.
they would have put 198 on the bar and taken a shot to win a world championship.
Oh, and he's just a stud. I mean, Kevin, his coach, and Harrison are just that's a fantastic team. That by far the two of the nicest people you'll ever meet in life, probably, but also just solid people in weightlifting.
Yeah.
And they have a fantastic thing going, and Harrison is, many more great competitions from him, I'm sure.
Yeah, some other highlights along the way, and congratulations to pass out. Certainly, Nathan Damron lifted very well, probably his best meet, making make PR in the clean and jerk, PR in the total. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So congratulations to him. And top 8, 8th place. So congratulations to him and Travis for his best performance at the best time. Wes Kitts, American record in the snatch, big PR in the clean and jerk. Great lifting for him. Our 90 kilo class lifters, I believe Marissa Klingseis took 5th, and Allie Ludwig took 7th. Solid lifting there. I think some PRs as well. And then America's first world champion in how long? A long time.
First world champion in seniors. Well, I don't know. The women's world championships are a little different because obviously in the 80s the level of competition was very different. So it would have been since the 90s. I want to say 92 maybe was the last time I had a world women's champion. Just fantastic.
Just a masterful performance by Sarah Robles, 6 for 6, and looking like she had more in reserve in all the lifts. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to Tim Swords, just great lifting. And congratulations overall to the women's team, who placed second overall on team points, only coming in behind Thailand, which Thailand I think won 15 total medals, and you can only have 16 people on the team, so they did quite well.
Yeah, really a fantastic. I initially you saw them and you're thinking, okay, like they're gonna clean up in the light classes, and they did. But when you saw the medal count, like on maybe Monday night, I was shocked. I was like, wow, 15 medals.
Yeah,
That is up there. So
yeah, and
yeah,
right, they're up there for the most enthusiastic fans. Definitely the most elaborately dressed super fan out there beating his drum in the in the bleachers
Mr.
with the full traditional garb on.
Mr.
Um,
Self.
yeah. So big congratulations to Team USA, all the lifters, all the coaches. Phil Andrews, Ursula Garza Papandrea, Piero Stimas, and Mike Gatone for really spearheading some great improvements and great effort and just a great event here in Southern California. So big
Yeah.
congrats to Team USA. Yeah, so I think kind of moving on to maybe some surprises or some disappointments, and just some other talking
Well,
points and issues about the event.
yeah.
Injuries
I,
when you're sorry. Go ahead, Max.
I was gonna say I would say there was uh, one odd thing about Sarah Robles' attempt that I didn't understand. Maybe I would get more info from sport. She had won it on her fifth, her last clean and jerk, or second to last second attempt, but didn't take a shot at the American record clean and jerk, even though 150.62 would have been a record and 158 is the last attempt she took. It looked like a broomstick in her hands. So that was a one attempt. I was just unsure of why that attempt was selected, but I'll have to ask Tim and see what his thoughts are. But yeah, it looked like she should have been able to break that American record clean and jerk for sure, which has stood for a very long time.
Yeah,
So
and probably Cheryl Hayworth was, I'd imagine, announcing that
must
session
have
on
been.
the live stream. I think
Yeah.
so.
So, but on to the next stuff.
Yeah, so moving on, injuries, of course, a part of very very heavy lifting, and some unfortunate injuries that occurred and didn't give us the opportunity to maybe see people at their absolute best. Kianush Rostami in the 85 kilo class suffered some type of leg injury in the training
Yeah.
hall 3 days before competition, and didn't allow him to really showcase his full abilities. Though it was a great battle, probably the most exciting or second most exciting session of the weekend. We'll talk about that a bit more. And then for Team USA, Colin Burns unfortunately suffered a slight dislocation of his shoulder on his second snatch attempt. So best
Yeah.
wishes to Colin in getting that healed and coming back strong. We know he's a hardworking guy, and
Yeah.
sure he'll turn that around well. Besides that, there were some sessions that were just missing so many lifts, and I
Yeah.
think the 105 men really stood out in that regard. That I know there was a point in which they were 9 for 25 as a group in the snatch. Wes Kitts kind of saving the interest in that with the American record, but I think two of the medalists in the snatch in the 105 came from the B session.
Yeah. There's a couple guys. I know one of them did at least 180, which is 180 is always a big snatch, and he from the B session is very impressive.
Yeah, that was like that 6'5" Ecuadorian guy.
Yeah. That was something that you and I kept commenting on for sure is the height of the lifters. They were on average, it seemed like the lifters were all taller and leaner, like not leaner, taller and thinner than they have been in the past years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were some exceptionally tall seeming lifters. I mean, Lasha is one thing, but supers excluded from that. In really all the weight classes, yeah, men and women lifters were much taller than I would have expected them to be.
Yeah.
What kind of correlation is there to much squattier, more stout lifters and the
So
countries that were banned? But
I actually had a thought on this, and maybe you're be interested to hear what your thoughts. My thought was that perhaps the situation with lifters being taller is that one, let's say assume the doping is less. Less doping is going to be less body weight for each individual lifter. So you're going to get less muscular lifters per foot of height, right? So you're going to get a little bit leaner lifters or smaller, thinner lifters in that regard. But then also the aspect of lifters that are going to succeed without doping are generally going to be the lifters that are capable of the one aspect of the lift that's absolutely necessary, which is bringing the bar to the right height. If you can't pull the bar high enough, there's just no way you can lift it. And you're generally going to get lifters that are better at pulling, which are going to be slightly taller lifters. That was my thought, is perhaps it's just kind of without drugs, with less doping, there's going to be a shift more towards the taller lifter, and those taller lifters are generally going to be less muscular or not as stocky built as the lifters would be with drugs. And if you kind of look back through history, you see the lifters were much more heavily muscled. And the further you get into the drug ages, the lifters are much thicker. They're much shorter per height, or shorter per weight class, right?
And would you think that maybe some of that is the strength qualities and the neural qualities being offered by performance enhancing drugs is going to allow the athlete to accelerate the bar in a shorter distance?
Yeah.
So a clean athlete will need maybe a bit more distance to accelerate the bar to the necessary level, so those extra inches of height are going to be useful.
I agree. I think that's a big part of it. I think that's you're just going to see lifters that are naturally predisposed to that one aspect of the lift being sort of, it's like if you took drugs out of you took all the drugs out of something like the shot put, you're always going to still get biggest people are going to do really well, right? But if you throw a bunch of drugs in there, you might get some shorter people that are able to excel with it, right? Not necessarily, that's not the best example, but weightlifting as that example, I think shorter people are going to be able to magnify their physical abilities so much with the drugs that, you might get much shorter lifters in that case. Like, I don't know. And maybe they just look tall because we're in person. Who knows?
Yeah.
Except that guy in the 94s must have been 15 feet tall.
The Brazilian 94, I'd say, is like 6'5", and you saw him up close at Pan Am's. He was very tall.
He was tall.
And
super tall.
I very much appreciated his mustache. He looked like he was ready to go play Dr. J in a game of 1-on-1.
Oh yeah, he was waiting for the Harlem Globetrotters to just jump in and play.
So I think a big question that a lot of people are having, and we already kind of started to touch on that with maybe this is why the lifters are taller, but is how did the bans of these 9 countries affect the results? And of course, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and a couple others that are escaping me were not in attendance due to doping bans. And then North Korea did not come because of whatever political reasons. The Kim Jong and Donald Trump not wanting to hang out, and there's a lot of people out there who think that maybe that made the world's boring or something like that. But before talking about whether it was exciting or boring or whatever, let's, at least for Team USA, look at the reality of how it affected their placing. So for those unaware, the way that the sort of first stage of team selection for Team USA is through a process called projected placing, and that is an average of, I'm not sure if it's the last 3 or the last 5 international competitions, uh, but let's say the last 3. I think. Do you know? Is it 3 or 5 years, Max?
I believe it was 3.
All
I
right.
think it's pretty always been 3.
So
But
this would be an average placing of the 2016 Olympics, the 2015 World Championships, and the 2014 World Championships, and they look at what totals made what place and average that out, so they can best select the team for the USA that will finish the highest.
yeah,
So going through all the lifters that made a total last night, or going through all the lifters that made a total this past week, the first number I'm going to say is the total that they made. The next number is what that total would have projected to, and the third number is going to be what their actual finish was. So Alyssa Ritchie totaled 177 at 48. That would have projected to a ninth place finish, but Alyssa finished seventh. Caitlin Hogan totaled 194, also
yeah,
projected ninth place, and she also finished seventh. Maddie Rogers, 235, was projected between an eighth and ninth place finish, and she finished third. Jenny
yeah,
Arthur totaled 234, a ninth or 10th place projected finish, and she ended up fifth. Marissa Klingseis, 239, was projected 10th, and she finished fifth. Ali Ledwig, 231, projected 12th or 13th, and she finished fifth. Sarah Robles, 284, is a projected fifth, and she finished first. And then on the men's side, Brian Reisenhower's 232 was actually not on the projected chart, so that was like below 26th place projection.
yeah,
And he actually finished ninth out of 9 competitors in that class. Harrison Morris, his 348 was a projected 5th or 6th, and he finished third. Angelo Bianco, 323, also in the 77s, was between 23rd and 24th projected, and he finished 16th. Nathan Damron's 358 at 94 was projected as 15th or 16th, and he finished 8th. Wes Kitts, 386. Wes Kitts' 386 was projected between 10th and 11th, and he finished 10th. And finally, Ian Wilson's 367 at 105 was a projected 22nd place finish, and he finished 15th. So a pretty big range there with
yeah,
Alyssa, Caitlin as the closest to their projected placing being the closest to their actual finish, just 2 spots off. Harrison, 5th or 6th projected, actually finished third. That's not too far off. Wes Kitts right on, projected 10th or 11th with a 10th place finish. Then there's some bigger changes in there. Certainly, Brian Reisenhower being the biggest discrepancy in his finish, but it looks like it was 2 to 5 places on average. So I'd say if I was to do the math and average this out, people were probably finishing about 4 spots higher on average, maybe 4.5 spots higher on average than the projected placing. And as the weight classes went up, those discrepancies seem to be a little bit wider.
yeah,
Maybe a bit of a bell curve, which I guess you'd expect that Maddie 6 places different, Jenny 5, 4 to 5 places different. Same for Marissa and Ali, 5 to 6 places different, and then Damron 7 to 8 places different. But for the lightweight classes, ninth place projected for Alyssa and Caitlin, finishing actually in 7th. Is not too far off. So from that standpoint, I would say that the bands, of course, we were missing a lot of good lifters, but the bands in and of themselves didn't change the landscape of worlds that significantly.
Yeah.
from my vantage point. Um, how the bans are going to change the landscape going forward is for the hope of the sport of weightlifting, and the during the last two days of Worlds, the IWF and IOC were meeting, and the IOC has said good job on making some changes to doping control and tightening things up there, so weightlifting gets to stick around for at least the 2024 and 2028 Olympics.
Yep.
And if they hope to make that stick and to stay beyond, those projected numbers are going to come down because those countries who are systemically doping and who are, that is such a ingrained part of their sport culture for weightlifting, are either going to keep getting banned. They might. I wouldn't be shocked at this point with Russia getting banned from the Winter Olympics again, and the way that Russia seems to be reacting and saying this is all IWF and IOC conspiracies and they're working against us. And if they're not going to take any responsibility for what they're doing, they're just going to get kicked out altogether. Like,
Yeah.
Russian Olympic sports may cease to exist, may cease to be a thing anymore. If
Yeah.
they
I
won't
mean,
acknowledge, like, yes, okay, guys, you
you got
we
us.
admit it finally after you caught us 50 times. I guess
Yeah.
we really were doing it. So those countries are gonna have to clean it up, and it's not gonna ruin weightlifting, because what the most exciting
Yeah.
parts of this meet, the world records are awesome, but the battles, the back and forth is great, because even when you're at nationals and it's maybe just American records being chased, or not even that, if you have two or three or four lifters really tight competition for these spots, that is what is the most exciting. And if that's happening at a 210 clean and jerk instead of a 230 clean and jerk in some of these weight classes, so be it. I think the competition
Yeah.
is really what's the most exciting.
I have to agree with that tenfold, because it's like you get a lot of people that, and I think the people that are kind of thinking it's not going to be cool are stuck in a place where all they care about is the number on the bar, which in all honesty doesn't really matter that much, in the sense of who's, does it matter if an 85 kilo guy is trying to clean and jerk 210 or 200? I mean, if there's three guys fighting for first, and each guy has to subsequently lift more and be successful, that's what's important. I mean, uh, the battles that were, even the super heavyweight class, it wouldn't have been the excitement that it was being there in person if the Iranians had not been there.
Yeah.
Had they both bombed, it would have been, or not even been there, it would have just been whatever. I mean, this guy's amazing. It's cool to watch. But, to be honest, I think the class that was least entertaining was the 94s, where, it wasn't so much that there was not a battle, but, I mean, Maradi just walked away with it, and it was obvious he was just going to crush everybody by a huge margin. So it really wasn't as good a fight as, let's say, the supers, where you've got guys going back and forth in the snatch, and more makes equals a better show.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was what really made the supers.
Yeah.
And it was the best session on many fronts, but I think first and foremost is because they were making the most lifts.
Yeah, for sure. They were really successful. The 85 battle with the Chilean and the Iranian, even though Rostami bombed in the clean and jerk, it was a fight, and it felt like a fight the whole time. It felt like a sport. It felt like a competition,
Yeah.
rather than just an exhibition of who's the strongest. Because none of them, Rostami wasn't lifting world record weights. They were huge, but he took a 215 on his third. Had he made that might have been one of the best sessions in recent memory. And he was watching him fight for that, knowing he was injured, trying to fight it, trying to win, because he had done that in the past. That was really what was cool about it. So much more so than how much weight he was actually doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, does a a 190 clean and jerk look different than a
Yeah,
205 clean and jerk? It's pretty much the same thing. So it really is the competition that makes it. And there may be some irony, I guess, in some of the top moments overall here. As the last thought I have about the idea of competition and doping control and weightlifting going forward, though we've had several episodes about this, and we could probably have several more. Is it's interesting to look at the field and see a few very significant outliers. And we'll just wait with bated breath to see what the pending results are there, as some international lifters got a week or 10 days to experience what Team USA lifters do on a daily basis, and that's the wonderful joys of USADA. So shifting along, and again, maybe some irony in some of these, but our top moments overall, the class of the women's the class women's performance of the whole week, in the 58 kilo class, Sing Chin Kuo totaled 240 at 58. She out-totaled, I think, the 63 and 69 kilo class champions. She's from Chinese Taipei, and she's very good at lifting things above her head.
Yes, she is. Holy cow. 140 clean and jerk at 58?
Yeah.
That's
unbelievably strong. And then, as we talked about the battles, and you already mentioned one of these, but the 85 kilo class, what's the Cuban Chilean?
Arlie.
What was it?
Arlie is his first name.
Yeah.
Arlie Mendez.
Arlie Mendez versus Kianush Rostami in the 85s. The snatch particularly had a lot of back and forth to it, lifting huge weights, but again, the competition of it. And then he took, after Rostami had bombed, and Mendez, I think they really just made smarter weight selections for him. So he got to get a fairly conservative opener in, with Rostami being very aggressive, opening at 213 or 214. So he had it won and got to take a shot at the world record with a phenomenally strong clean, but it kind of rocked him out of position a little bit before he began his jerk, and wasn't able to really recover his position there. But very impressive lifting. Go ahead.
That was a great session. Good battle.
Yeah, the 77 kilo session in the clean and jerk, including Team USA's Harrison Morris, along with the Egyptian male Alyssa Ritchie, Mohammed Ehab, and one other lifter that very tight grouping in there in the low to mid 190s in the clean and jerk, just back and forth lifting and very exciting. The 62 kilo snatch session for the men, a lot of made lifts, a lot of close heated competition. Muradi's clean and jerk world record. How much more could he have put on the bar there? He did it on his second attempt, or he did it on a second and passed his third.
I mean, that was the kind of thing where, like, well, if you're gonna do something big, like, we want to see something huge. It's tough because I imagine those guys get paid per record, so they're not gonna blow a whole year's salary in one lift.
For sure. But if doping control really catches up the way that it's seemingly going, maybe you gotta make the big lifts while the making is good.
You got one more shot, buddy. That's it.
Yeah, because while world record is amazing, Pop, obviously speculating here, not to accuse anyone of anything, but
he was doing like a 317 or 330 total maybe 6 years ago.
Oh,
so he's added quite a few kilos to that.
Yeah, beginner gains if I've ever seen it. But sometimes maybe you just gotta take that third attempt once you've already won and set the world record, just for all-time legend status, because the 240 there would live on regardless of any
Yeah, it would just be one of those moments like, oh man,
Yeah.
that was. Remember that time he just flipped everyone the bird and did that 240?
And that's sort of my reaction with a lot of people of when if they criticize doping at the highest level of sport, powerlifting, weightlifting, track and field, whatever. It's like there's a shitload of people who have done drugs, in their life, but there's not many of them who could clean and jerk 240,
Oh my god. Yeah.
especially on the competition stage. So,
Yeah.
but Marati's clean and jerk world record, very very impressive. And then, as we mentioned, the super session was so exciting, from so many elements. Whether it's the Iranian fans going crazy and they're very passionate, very misguided passion at some
They're
times.
I'm gonna be less. They're a horrible group of people. And they they were. I mean, I don't know about you. I think one of my like when they were really energetic and that was awesome. But then when Badad Salimi pulled what will one day be referred to as a Salimi, like just like we refer to the Clark, Clarking it, just like it'll be like the Munson, right? Like, oh man, you really Salimi that jerk, where you press out a weight, then you look confused because even though you're the only one in the whole room that thinks you didn't press out,
That pretends to think
come
that you didn't
back.
press it out.
His biggest mistake was that he came back on his second and showed everyone that he can do a very good jerk.
Yeah.
Because then his third was just so bad. It was so not even close, and he thought, oh, I got this. And a reenactment of the Olympics, sans the sitting on the floor
Yeah.
crying.
I've never been like a diehard fan of any athlete or any sports team, but
Yeah,
whatever team I'm rooting for, when there is a clearly egregious penalty, holding, pass interference, whatever it is in a football game, only the fan deluded by their fanaticism can
yeah,
can sit there and still argue like, no, that wasn't a press out, that wasn't a penalty, whatever it was, and stay on the refs about that kind of thing. One of my
yeah.
best friends is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan, and maybe not in his younger, more fiery years, but at least at this point in his life, when the Cowboys make a penalty that is clear and obvious, he gets pissed for a second, and then he's kind of like, oh yeah, that was probably pass interference, and that is the lesson that the Iranian fans need to learn.
Yeah.
Awesome, passionate, organized behind their lifters through so many sessions of the weekend, but then when it's a clear press out again and again, like just
Well,
accept it.
the thing that was awful is like they're jeering and they're screaming and yelling, and then they start using that as a weapon against other lifters. And the Uzbekistani guy came out, and they because he's going for a heavier number,
Yeah.
and they were just they would not shut up, and they were it was bad, and it anyone watching the live stream, I don't care, like you weren't there. Being there was a very different energy in the air.
Yeah.
Because there was really two groups in the audience. There was the Iranians, and then there was the sane human beings that were rooting for people. And the louder the Iranians got, jeering against the Uzbekistani guy.
Well, just jeering against whoever was coming onto the
Yeah,
platform
and
next.
they were brutal, and then he misses, and then I think that action, I know for myself, that got me pissed off and fired up, because when Mart Seam came out,
Yeah, this is one of this was my second favorite moment of the whole week.
He came out, and I was like, "Fuck you guys! I want this guy to make this lift," and he was just a savage, and they were getting louder and louder and louder, trying to fuck him up, trying to mess him up. And the entire audience, all the locals from Anaheim and the California area, all the American people, everyone got up behind him, cheering for him, almost drowning out the Iranians. And he made the lift in the face of it. And I think it just made everybody. That was like one of those sporting moments where it was just like you felt like you were on the stage lifting with him. It was so cool.
Yeah, and a huge PR day all around for Mart Seam. I think 191 in the snatch and 253 in the clean and jerk.
Yeah.
and probably his incredible squatting makes us even bigger fans of
Oh
him.
yeah.
But it was very cool to see him have that performance in the face of adversity, which brings us to the last moment and the best moments of the weekend.
Yep.
Lasha Tajazekzi from Georgia. Again, kudos to the world's announcer, because there's a lot of very hard names. But Lasha, just
Yeah.
an
Wow.
absolute clinic. I mean, whether you were there watching live, whether you're watching on the live stream, you saw the best lifting that anyone has ever done.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
210 snatch opener, one of the likely the heaviest opening
Yeah.
snatch in the history of the sport. Made it look like a toy. You know,
That was yeah.
crushed 220, complete confidence. You know, how many more? 225, 230 doesn't seem out of the question at
Oh my
all.
God.
And then to go into the clean and jerk, and it just so calm, so composed throughout, being booed, being heckled, whatever it is, and to smash the heaviest total in weightlifting history, including all the different changes to weight classes and everything. 220, 257 for a 477 total, and both lifts looking like he's just on his way to a heavier one.
It's really insane to think that his snatch would have won him medals all the way up into the 94s in the clean and jerk.
Yeah, and for it to look that,
Yeah.
I mean, his training hall videos, the 210 in the training hall and the 120 muscle snatches,
Yeah. Just so
he's
insane.
yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah. That one for the 215, like the 210 was incredible. The 215 was like it was no harder, if not easier, than the 210, which just it put into perspective just how unbelievably strong he is. The 220 was like a tiny bit like forward. He had to step forward on it, but I mean, it was you can't even imagine. And he just outperformed every single competitor before with that 6 for 6
Yeah,
world record all over the place. Um, you know, the only thing I think that could have been worse for the Iranian fans, which may have caused a riot and or some kind of uh,
international incident.
yes, international incident, is if he had taken a 264 clean and jerk and wiped the Iranians' names from the record board of the senior lifters.
Yeah,
But he didn't. He just went for the massive total record.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the heaviest ever done in international competition of all time, including 80s and any restructuring of the weight classes, 477. So
yeah. So incredible to watch, and just seems like a sort of affable, easygoing guy. Just like, oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm just up here doing my thing, lifting weights. What do you got over
yeah.
there? 100 kilos? Oh yeah, I'm just doing 220. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah, very, very impressive. So a great week overall, great lifting. Congrats to Team USA, the coaches, the staff, for a great event. We roll right into tomorrow, the American Open, where Team Juggernaut will have a number of athletes competing. Congratulations to, of course, Alyssa Ritchie on her 7th place performance at Worlds. Congratulations to you, the coach, Max Ada.
Thank you.
And if you enjoy the Jug Life podcast, please go on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, write us something funny or nice, and maybe we'll read it on the air. I didn't look one up before this episode today, so I'm not going to read one. But there's a lot of funny ones there, and the more reviews, better reviews we can get, the more people can find the Jug Life podcast, and they can learn how to do things more betterer. So yeah,
Yep.
go on there and leave us a review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Always proud of the content we produce there, along with the help of the world's strongest videographer, Shorty Sedang. 2 to 3 videos a week: powerlifting, weightlifting, nutrition, movement, and more. So go and subscribe there and get the video versions of the Jug Life. This is just an audio version for this special bonus episode. And if you're interested in powerlifting, weightlifting, and super total coaching, visit juggernautcoaching.com and check out our various levels of coaching offerings there. Max, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Max_Ada, or on Facebook, or email me, max@jtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith, and at Juggernaut Training on Facebook and Instagram, filling up your newsfeed all day. This was the Jug Life Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.